Good morning, ladies and gents, and welcome to another edition of A Different View. Today, we finally get into the topic. We've been talking about it. It's coming along here again. I did not want to wait for next year because I know way too many people are going to be distracted here. Also, shout out here is going to be part of the conversation we're going to have today. So not only the election day episode here is what we're going to call it, but also shout out to daylight savings time. Lord knows people need rest. And we're going to touch on it here in this episode here because again, people have been bred. See, in order for us to generate enough for the machine and less for us, y'all have heard me say this a million times, and I'm gonna keep on saying it until I just can't say it no more. You have to buy into a certain line of thinking in order for people to take from you, or in order for people to give to you. You have to get to a certain, you got to suck down enough to rob a term from an unfortunate time back in the day here, Jesus juice. Because that was an unfortunate period as far as belief goes and all that kind of thing where people twist. You're going to hear me talk a lot about that today because that is the truth. When you speak on the ties with election day here, it is in support of twisting the truth so that people can be taken from. And this does not mean that you don't promote inside your government. It doesn't mean that you don't, and this is any government in the world. So this would be France, England, Africa, Asia. It don't United States. It don't matter where. Mexico, South America. It don't matter where. Again, the idea, folks, we need to realize is that because it's run by people. And again, you've heard me say this as far as all the different isms go. And many of these isms were created by people here in order to control folks, in order for one group, not all, one group of people. And again, this is also part of the Sunday message because it is Sunday. So we're going to be able to tie in some other things here to kind of drive home the point here. Because when you start to enter into belief, which we talked about in these past Halloween episodes, it really starts to hammer home the ideas and stuff. So next year, and of course, election day sometimes is November 4th, this, that, and the other. So next year, I looked into it, it's going to be November 5th next year. So for those who vote, mark it on your calendar. I think this is a good time to stop and pause and say this. It is your choice. It is your choice to vote. And I think this is actually a good spot here. Let me just flip back in my notes. Y'all know me and my notes. Got to keep all the thoughts in the head here somehow to be able to be said properly here. So we're going to start here with this one. Do not. And guys, I'm going to say a lot of stuff here that it's going to be hard to hear. We're going to break down some definitions. We're going to go into some verses. Because again, there are much roots to the tree that is bearing fruit here. And biblically, God talks a lot about how trees are known by the fruit they're bearing. And when you do a study in history, U.S. history, world history, you start to see that the tree they're telling you that is good for you, much like what happened to the fall of humans. It's not for you. It's not for you to partake of. And you need to be wary in doing so. So, do not use your vote to support a twisted, sick system of government. Instead of just election day to help yourself and hold government accountable, because that's what we did. That's what election day is about, right? I mean, and Lord knows I've been fighting for the vote. See again, we just said here at the top, we're talking about twisting. We're talking about taking holy notions, and we're going to get into this when we do the Veterans Day episode. Because one, shout out to see again, people think because I have one is for humanity. Of course, do I highlight like I've said in previous episodes, we do collective and individual speech. There's two different things. One is to benefit the group. Another is to benefit individuals, which in turn will benefit the group. So because sometimes y'all will hear me speak on things that, as the term is used in society, as pro-black, that does not mean that I'm negating other people here. Why? Because we all live on the planet. And when one group of people receives success, the other group benefits. This is how society, this is the study of sociology. This is how the game works. And unfortunately, because of greed, you've got to twist certain notions here in order to make it look like, well, if they succeed, you're screwed. No, when that happens, that's when greed has taken hold. And then now you say, forget this other person, and we're going to go this way. There's a difference. So, again, when you're talking about holding government accountable and voting is one way. Okay, voting on election day, I should say, is one way that you hold government accountable, because it should be. People should be held accountable. All of us, see. Again, when you introduce things like greed and hate, that's where accountability and responsibility go out the door. Because again, in order for you to amass something, you got to say, "Hey, screw that. I don't care about that. We don't care accountability, responsibility. What are these words? I don't know nothing about that." You have to come back to. You have to separate from a lot of certain things that you've been told, and you have to come back to certain things that hold accountability. And we're talking to the highest levels possible. See again, where folks allow certain evils to creep in. It happens because people stop holding certain accountability. This does not mean you create a society, folks, where there's no fun. This does not, where there's no expression. See, again, a lot of the lies here that's been perpetrated. You gotta be careful. Again, when you start robbing expression and you start robbing individualism, when you start robbing this stuff, you decrease yourself as a society. Now, what you've done is block the expression that could create profit for you and your society, because you're trying to, quote unquote, hold responsibility. You have to be careful to not let these things go out of balance, because they can go way out of balance. And we'll get into that when we talk about the definitions of the word conservative and liberal, because people keep using words and phrases here that are mucking up the game. There's no other way of saying it. So let's finish this one here. Don't only use your vote as far as, let's reread. Do not use your vote to support a twisted, sick system of government. Instead of just using election day only to help yourself and hold government accountable, be more involved in your community functions. Ladies and gents, I don't know how else to say it. So we're talking big cities. We're talking rural areas. We're talking suburban areas. And of course, already mentioned city, urban areas. Okay. And of course, work and the busyness of life people have put in. Some of that's also subliminal, because again, in order to be doing something, you got to be busy, in order to be, it's another way of saying doing something. In order to be doing anything of any value, you got to be busy, right? Because, not being busy, of course, Lord, how people have sucked down the wrong here. So of course, not being busy. Now, mind you, we said this is the Sunday message. So God rested after 7 days. I guess maybe God was doing some evil stuff after resting. Got to wake up the mind here, folks. Maybe Jesus was wrong and he was doing something evil when he came away from the crowds. See, the idea of constant work, folks, is only because they need you to keep fully working all the time to generate as much for them as possible. Not for yourself. This is where you start to get into certain things, like when we spoke on the Labor Day episode, where you had changes done in the working environment because people need rest. You can't be working 12, 14, 16-hour days and really think you're going to be, how do they use the word when they're talking about kids? A viable means in society, a help to society. You will not. You will not. And you will develop disease and sickness. And that's another part of the reason why they do it. Again, when we speak on voting, one of the things people vote about is healthcare. We put improper balances in healthcare by buying into this sickness, which is not capitalism, by the way. Again, when you speak on the word capitalism, when you look up its definition, it deals with owners benefiting from their businesses. Now, I went on record last time saying it. I'm going to say it again. Owners should benefit from the businesses and corporations that they own. Here is the problem. It's in the workers you have doing it. Because see, if you are just benefiting, then that also means you're the one doing the working. Another thing here, ladies and gents, is I must say this, and I constantly repeat it because, again, repetition is necessary for learning. At the end, this is why it's bad when people make fun of folks on their comprehension levels and all that type of stuff. It is wrong. We buy into folks the stuff they want us to, though. When I say they, I'm talking greedy, whether we're talking high folks who got money in the bank system, whether we're talking people who have high power in different governmental things. When that's the they we're talking here, folks who are moving and grooving, these lawmakers making these weird imbalanced laws without our vote. This is another thing here. There's a lot of these laws that come down the pike, folks. They just come out with it. You see no public interaction. You got to question certain things like that. Any one of these things that drops off, people need it. If government's for folks, then folks need to be way more involved in their government. And that's the part, because you get certain things that come up in the mind here. Because again, I said I was going to do it in this episode. We're going to go in, guys. The idea that, oh, it don't make a difference because this, that, and other. Folks, look through history, and every time something has been done, an amendment has been made, anything like that, the public outcry of the people has been the change. I mean, every one of them, whether you're talking the creation of Labor Day, it doesn't matter. Anytime people, because this is how it's designed, folks. It's masses of people together, and you have a group and a government together because order is necessary, or else life is lived in balance here. This is another one of these. See, in that Halloween episode, we dealt with certain things here that deal in life in general, spiritual laws. So on this earth, you have both chaos and order. You need change. We don't just change to change, and you see that a lot in society. Changing just to change is bad. Changing to change because it's necessary in certain spots. That is always necessary because life is constantly evolving. That's why it's silly for Christians to downplay evolution. When you read in the beginning in Genesis, that is not telling you, this is just a little side note here, you can do what you want with it. That is not telling you that in the beginning was in the beginning right then and there when the writer wrote it. That is a clear indication of the writer writing something, speaking to something that happened before, not when he or she was on the scene. Let's go pause to let that sink in for a second. So when you see in the beginning does not mean that was thousands of years or 2,000 years ago. It could clearly and easily, and all you have to do is start doing an anthropological study and start looking at things, and it goes way past it. Way past it. Do not think of your creator as so base and so mid. To rob some terms here from young people, which is good. As older people here, just another side note. Because again, another one of these divisions that they put in place here is this idea for older people to constantly be at the throats of younger people in some pseudo attempt of putting them on the right path. Anything you've ever read biblically, unless you took it out of context, doesn't even have anything to do with that. Again, God has given us choice. So that means even though you train your children a certain way, guess what, folks? One, you do that because it's right toward other people. It's good to input into their lives. And that's not just parents to kids. That's older people to younger people in any form of life. Not only did they look up because they don't know, they haven't been there yet. You have. The great designer of this thing put that way on purpose, that people would have a gravity to them as they pass on knowledge. Guys, I'm sorry if this comes off disrespectful, but see, again, the Bible talks a lot of things about, like, if judgment starts in the house of God. So, see, many times people keep going around pointing fingers at other folks instead of internally to themselves. And many of these things that I've come to see here, this is not easy, because I grew up like many people who hear me on these podcasts, learning things a certain way. And it took a long time and a lot of knocking my head against the wall, as many of y'all who hear me on this episode today have done, to start seeing that life actually is a completely different way. Some very serious variances than what I've always thought it to be. It's what happens normally with people who have what they call the word epiphany. You start to see that some of the stuff you've been doing is wrong, and that's done for a reason, because it is the great creator crying out, trying to help folks, trying to get them to see that what you're doing is not really helping you, it's hurting you. It's the reason for the verse, come out from among them and be ye separate. It's the reason for verses like, do not be unequally yoked together with unbelievers. Going to stop here and pause on that, because again, when you speak on being equally yoked, that's talking like mindset, and not carbon copy. So we're not looking for people to be the same as us. That'd be a little creepy. We're not looking for folks to be the same as us. Similar. See, again, like when you look in creation, the creation story, you hear God talking about likeness. And this gets into this whole idea with gender. So we're going to stop here for a second, because this is another one of these things people vote on every election day. This is the one Christians get involved on. They invite senators and Congress people into their congregations so that they can get money. And you now you put yourself in the pauper position, the beggar position. Okay. Again, when your Bible tells you to give Caesar unto Caesar and God to God, that we've been doing more Caesar giving than we've been doing God giving. That really is the truth, folks. This is not for votes or popularity. Again, for those who love this life, you will lose it. This is not coming from me. This is biblical. This is biblical references, folks. And again, for those on here who will listen to me, who do not believe in Christianity, every holy book ever been written has the same similar type of thought process through it, whether it's the Quran, whether you're talking holy writings of Hindu, whether you're talking about those Buddhistic, that does not matter which one you go to. The laws of doing good and shunning evil have always been there. This idea of abstaining from the very appearance of evil, dealing honestly when you speak and in business affairs, the Bible goes over and over and over again. And we're going to stop on this one right here and say this, because this is one of these verses here, folks. Again, we just having a conversation. We're just having a conversation. You take it for what it is, okay? But again, this is why I named the podcast the way I've done it. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing. Again, everybody's got a vision, got a call for things, and I believe this one's mine here. So, speaking on the idea of how wildly things go sideways. My people perish for a lack of knowledge. This is in Hosea. This is Hosea 4:6. And because they reject knowledge and have forgotten the law of God, in turn, now in the verse, it says that God will forget your children. Folks, this is going into Bible study now, in biblical context and all this kind of thing. We need to look less at the stuff about what God is doing and what we need to be doing. Don't worry about the fact of whether God will forget this, that, and the other. That's not the key in that verse. The keys in these verses is what humanity needs to do. Stop rejecting knowledge. You hear stuff coming from people, at least give them a listen. At least consider the possibility what they might be saying is true. For years here, folks, years, I'm talking about going all the way back into the Bible with the minor prophets and the major prophets. Stories like the story of Jonah going to Nineveh. Stories like Abraham and Lot. And again, people malalign Sodom and Gomorrah just a bit too much. But at the end of the day, we're still talking about the wrong that was there because the brakes were off. And again, I'm not getting into that whole homosexuality thing because, again, clearly those verses are talking about rape. They're not talking about two men liking each other. Yeah, So here's another thing what everybody talks about on election day is this idea we're trying to repress the transgender and homosexual thing. OK, so we'll I've already done one episode on it during Pride Month. So we'll go there here. OK. Leave the judgment part of this up to the creator. Now, I get it, right? So folks don't want to hear don't want to see drag queens teaching folks about certain things. Guys, I think when you're talking about sex, because this is what this gets into is sex. One, so we said that the spirit realm and the multiverse, right, in Halloween episode, right, people know frighteningly very little about. Do you know what another one of them is? Sex. Because people have been way too repressive about sex and sexual things. Folks know very little, although the knowledge is there. Folks know very little. See, when you go into it's another, again, the great God has made love, folks. These are certain things that you have to come to certain conclusions on. Well, again, right? So like we talked about it in the Halloween episode, what do you believe? What do you believe? To each person has been given their own belief, the ability to believe, okay? This comes down to more the same thing where people started vilifying Halloween, when in reality, it is how another group of people believe on this planet. That's it. That's it. The truth is there is very serious things about evil spirits that you need to ward yourself from. Okay, there is something where as far as those around us who have passed, this idea of communing with the dead, again, you are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. That's what the Bible tells you. That means your grandmama and your great-granty and your aunts and uncles and all these people are still around you. They're not here anymore. Now, again, Jesus talks about how we pray now through Christ to God. But at the same time, talking to your mom after she's gone. And talking to your dad after he's gone. And your grandmother, people that you hold dear to you. Looking to them for wisdom and guidance. And specifically, we're talking here to Christian folks. And again, to each person their own. See, we've been given the choice to choose. And too many times we get into the social cop. The fashion police, if you will, type of thing here, instead of just living life. It's not wrong, folks. They're there, cheering us on, or putting up the stop sign. Don't do that. This is probably a bad idea. You don't want to be doing this. Okay? We're talking about a conglomerate of folks here trying to help us. Again, even the story in the Bible that talks about the man who went down into hell trying to tell the other person up top, kind of like what you see with the Christmas Carol story. Don't come here. You don't want to come here. It's a great divide. I can't get back to you, but you don't want to come here. See? That's why people have certain dreams and stuff where they see their loved ones after they pass. Certain connections and bonds. See again, folks, it's the spirit realm people know very little of. But it's something we need to respect. And it's the same thing with sex. Start respecting people. Again, you don't want certain things in your schools and stuff like that. Again, here is the issue. Make way for the knowledge to come out. Right? Because that's the point. Folks who are homosexual, transgender, those of the LGBTQ plus community have a right and a say, folks. People don't have an idea about pansexuality. Don't have any clue because they just assume that it's one way or the other. Again, like they do about a lot of life. Life is not one way or the other. Again, the Bible talks about in the creation of humanity, that literally the word them used right there. Male and female created he them. Switch out the he for God. God created them. This is what, so when you start break it down, right? We said we were going to do that. So break it down. When you look at the word them is dealing with them. Again, woman was pulled from man, folks. How does that work? How is God creating female if God is he? You got to realize that, again, we're talking about in the likeness, right? These are the words used in the scriptures. Again, people really don't take the time to pause and think. If the they and all these other words, and we're talking about pronouns now. This is what I'm getting into. Again, if you choose not to look at something a certain way, that's fine. That's fine. Under an open heaven we live, folks. So if you choose not to look at something that way, that's great. Don't minimize somebody else because they look at it differently. Again, you want protection for your own people, right? Your own culture. Again, when you look at the word culture, that etymology in that word means cultivation, right? Like a garden. So, okay, so in your garden, you don't want these certain plants growing up there. That's fine. You ain't got to plant them there. But that don't mean you don't stop the plant from growing somewhere else. Don't mean you push them off on some island somewhere either, because that's the other thing. People think of them so weird because they don't study sex, that all of a sudden now, no, we need, there's an island of misfit toys over there. That's not what it is. See, again, you leave that part of it up to the great creator of all, folks. Leave it up to God. It's not up to you. Again, you want to protect your kids from certain things. You don't want them talking about and all that kind of thing. Understandable. Okay. But again, let's start using our votes here. Getting back to that. Let's start using our votes here to support us, and not just us, all people, because we have to watch out for this exclusion. There's a huge, Lord, the exclusion of folks, man. You have to be on guard with that. See. More of these laws and rules and stuff. This is about exclusion. This ain't about inclusion. Many of these were the amount of, when I'm going to use this term, the amount of technology that is being used today. I heard that listening to another person's podcast a while back, so it's not a word I came up with. Just to give credit again, we're talking about giving credit to where credit is due. We cannot. It's time to let some of this go, folks. Our ancestors meant well. Our patriarchs and matriarchs meant well. In many cases. Some of it they were pulled off by the racism and sexism and ageism of their generation that they either didn't realize or just stayed stuck to because they didn't want to make too many waves, which happens in every generation. This is why I'm this stupid thing people keep doing between boomers and millennials and Gen Z. Why? I don't care how many definitions they come up for humanity, man. They'd be just better off saying the people that grew up between the 50s to the 70s. Coming out with these stupid phrases and stuff for the different generations is kind of comical to listen to. One group thinks that they're better when in reality everybody is doing the same thing in varying degrees. Folks get mad at older people get mad at kids because they work and complain too much. Meanwhile, all the rules and everything was made from older people complaining. Now, again, folks look at the word complain wrongly. Everybody's supposed to be complaining. It depends on what you're talking about and how you present it. That's the problem. So when parents had this kind of thing where they wanted their kids to come up with you speak on something and then you come up with plans as to how to do it, and you present it to your parents. And some people, everybody's parents didn't do it. Some people's parents did it. That's what we're looking for. But the complain part is necessary. Folks need, when you look at the definition of word complain, which you ain't gonna get into because I like to leave some homework for folks. Just like we talked about apologize in the last couple episodes. Complain is dealing with something where you bring to light what's going on. That's it. There's a problem. There's an issue going on. Here you go. There ain't nothing wrong with it. Now we don't come out with certain words, which I won't say on the things. We're trying to keep it. We're trying to keep it as best as we can here. I can't promise in the future, but we're trying to keep it as quote unquote PG as we can. So we'll just say it's blanking and moaning. That's what they say. The people have bought into, again, as I'm saying, folks buy into things that is necessary from the society, the ruling part of the society they live in order to take from you. Our ancestors got paid horribly low. And when I say horribly low, I'm talking horribly low. We ought to be congratulating our kids for not working like our parents did. Yeah, I said it. Hard work for no pay and low pay is a problem, folks. And this is another thing people vote on when you talk about jobs, when you talk about education. Guys, if we're making them profit, we need to profit. Okay, it can't be where their profit is our less profit. That's not how the game works. Now, again, I mentioned this before. Life might look different as a result. It might. You might not have 58 million stores somewhere in some square inch in the city. Okay, but at the end of the day, the quality of life ain't about how much you amass. That's where greed kicks in. It's the quality of life that the Creator made down here, and enough resources to sustain us for a quality of life. And the quicker that we see it, the better it is. Again, folks, we have turned healthcare on its ear because we constantly keep supporting this idea of work. Rihanna came out with that song and more of a chant for folks who are who are in the working class, who just constantly keep going to work. And shout out to my culture, right? Part of those of African descent here, where we talk when the work thing is bad. Another thing that folks vote on, and this one I'm gonna stop here and talk to my people for a minute. So, and this generates everybody, by the way. But again, stop using your vote to these parties don't care about you. Drop a little line here. We might reiterate it here in a bit. When you're talking about Democratic and Republican parties, which we're gonna get into both of them definitions, because again, folks, we done watching the TV show here. And the play is staged. Okay, the play is staged. You got to use certain things to rob from people. It doesn't make the notions themselves unholy. It makes the way they are using it unholy. So we'll get to this one here. Little stars here I got on some of these things. Pretty impactful thoughts to me, folks. Votes are folks are supposed to vote for the enrichment of themselves. And this is where people start to get into this selfish, selfless thing. Life is balanced, folks. So where you see the selfish part, somewhere you're supposed to be seeing the selfless part. Give and receive, aka give and take. If you're seeing only give, it's out of balance. If you're seeing only take, it's out of balance. The idea in society is both, not one or the other. So when you say the enrichment of yourself, it's for the enrichment of yourself, folks. To my people, we have gone on long enough. We see, and then you got a lot of detractors out there. Remember, on the onset of this, I talked about a lot of stuff that flashes off in people's, no, that's not true. No, this, that, and the other, what happened to slavery helped y'all. See, this is another thing that's coming out in the news and all this kinds of things today. Oh, this, that, and the other. Nobody mentions about the black codes and slave codes, though. Nobody wants to talk about that as slaves, how you were property. You could not own property. and you could not gather in a certain amount of people because of the revolutions that were happening, as they should, because you do not forcefully enslave someone to work for you and not give them their fair due. I wonder where else we see that today. I'm just going to leave that there because I've already talked about it before. So we're just going to leave that there. Guys and gals, it is time to disconnect from the stuff that they have told you. You want a better life. People talk about change. Everybody talks about that. You hear all the catchphrases, all of them. All misused and used out of place here to lead people off the path of sharing this thing and sharing it better than we are. Getting rid of when they talk about cancel culture, you're using that out of balance. We're talking about things that have been put into society, should not have never been and should not be. You want to put a name and title to it, go for it. When you're talking about slavery, folks, that's not how we make our money. I'm sorry. This idea that is now perpetrated through jobs that was done through slavery. The idea of not giving people proper credit for the work they do is an issue. When I'm talking about credit, I mean that money. I'm talking about perks and benefits like time away from vacation. That's why I stop. So when it comes to the strike thing, you see the strike thing happen with those who have means, of course. Okay. And in unions and such, right? These are people that have paid their dues. Now, again, you want to get on the fact of the dysfunction inside the unions. That's a separate topic, but do not discredit the fact that you have protections for the workers, folks. Protections for the workers is most paramount under the current societal structure. This ain't just full capitalism, folks, because if that was the case, your CEOs would be working because they'd be the ones profiting from the business. But see, they're not the only ones profiting from the business because they have workers working for them. Now you've changed it a little bit. See, it's not just the one thing anymore. It's more of a hybrid. And if the workers now, we're talking about a definition of words now. See, when you look at the thing, now you have to consider that, hey, these workers need to be taken care of as well. And when greed is at work, that's when that notion goes right out the door. We can't be taking care of y'all. So you're going to get a portion of what we get at best. And y'all figure out the best way of making it work. Again, we're talking legally how we can bring these things to light, folks. When you're talking about people who could make money, because again, right, we're talking about most lawyers and stuff won't even pick up something until they can see that they can make money from it. And part of that is right. Part of that is wrong. This is why you see the word pro bono out there. Again, if life is about give and take, aka even the phrase quid pro quo, which is a very real thing that people keep abusing here. Something for something, and the somethings are not adding up. You got life and money flying through the roof here. I've had so many conversations with folks on this. You got the money flying through the roof. Prices, guys, have gone through the roof. And here we go. We blame this one. We blame President Joe Biden. We'll blame past President Donald Trump, but Barack Obama. Guys, we talking about the, how do I even say this? The real thing at work is not your president. It's the government. It's the various setups. Start getting involved there. You know, here's one of them, right? Because folks get on abortion. Like I said about sex here just a little while ago. It's about responsibility, folks. Responsibility with the abilities you've been given. The ability for a woman to be able to do stuff. See, again, some certain people on some sides don't have no problem. You know, don't mess with my stuff. This is mine. Don't touch this, that, and the other. So you got like gun control, for instance. This is another thing that people will use their vote for. Freedoms to do things. But y'all on this side, though, you got these freedoms here. Nah, y'all need control there. Stop doing that stuff. It's either for everybody or it's for nobody. When we keep doing this tap dancing, patty cake back and forth, little hokey pokey, 1 foot in, one, when they see that in society, And again, they're timing in on it, and they got us doing this divisional dance when in reality we're supposed to be coming together. The truth is, when you speak on gun control, you need to have control because people are too nutty today, and and you have a corrupt government pumping guns into wrong places, and we're shooting and killing each other because they know folks have an anger problem. You need to make sure they got nothing but laws in place for that, and I could care less which party is doing it. I want to see the laws and the rules. See, this is the other thing. Everybody is so keen on the people. Before they get on the ballot, folks, they've already signed up for the idea of Screw You magazine. They do not. Again, nobody is here doing this. Yeah, it's about fairness and justice, but nobody, they use the terms. There's 100 different things throughout history. You can go and look at this. I'm not even gonna see. Again, like, I've come to the conclusion, I think a lot of people just are okay with how things are, which is why the question I raise is, what is it going to take? What event is going to occur for people to start seeing it? Now, see, we saw this back in 2020 here, where people started to get on the bandwagon. And of course, like most things, when something holy gets started, something unholy gets in there to disrupt it. So where you had Black Lives Matter, which is the truth, you had this whole Antifa thing come out of nowhere to derail it. It's happened a million times in life in different scenarios. You had the idea, which again, when we talk about, and speaking on the Negro Project and the Black vote and all that kind of thing, which again, people need to understand and realize their power. See, folks, when you, and shout out to Sony Studios here, or Sony Santa Monica Studios, that made this year's rendition of MLB The Show. The fact that they put in the Negro Leagues and started talking about the history of the Negro Leagues is paramount. When you speak on sports, so this is another one that I had in here, another thing that people go ham about, because again, it's about distractions here. I don't want nothing in my sports and I won't see nothing. And same thing with movies too, guys. Art imitates life, sports, and music. And again, we got to come away from this divisional thing and start seeing the beauty, seeing the beauty in different views. I understand everybody has a certain thing, like I like my country music. I don't want it messed with, et cetera, et cetera. But folks, again, we're talking to a more base foundational thing in society, which is, while you have certain likes and dislikes, do not allow either one of those to blind you from seeing other things and enjoying other stuff. See, again, you can say, we'll just use certain artists as an example, George Strait. Don't allow your love for George Strait to stop you from liking David Bowie or Jay-Z. You see what I'm saying? Or from appreciating certain redeemable, we'll say it that way, appreciating certain redeemable factors of said artists. It's expression, folks. And when you start doing that dividing of expression and keeping down one for the other, which again, we're not talking like conjecture for what I'm saying historically now. That has been passed down to folks. And we're going to get into that when we talk about the word tradition here, because it deals with one of the groups of people that they constantly keep bringing up, which is silly. And we'll get into that. So let's keep going. let's keep going on through this. Yeah, so for enrichment of ourselves, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. This idea of it's okay to be using your vote for the enrichment of yourself. It's okay to use your vote for the enrichment of other folks. Okay, that's the point. Again, when somebody else benefits, we all benefit. However, when we neglect other groups of people to enrich solely, well, I don't know how else I can keep saying this. When we neglect, I'm talking about like that neglect, what's another word? Discredit, that whole kind of thing. When and I'm not just talking about reparations here, folks. So some people's minds will start going a certain way again, preset things here in people's heads, just like, whoa, no, maybe take it at face value here, folks. Whenever we start neglecting other groups of people to solely enrich one, we hurt ourselves. Why do I say that? A society benefits when everybody in the society benefits. I don't, and we gotta get more into looking out for each other, which is why when it comes to language, it's real cool, as they say, the old school term, speaking the king's language over here. Okay, that you got to realize and expand that a little more, that you're speaking the language of your captor. Because see, we don't know about, unless you talk to certain native tribes and other tribes of people that were on these lands that have a certain language. You'll kind of hear how they were talking on these lands. Again, when you talking about speaking solely English, expand your mind. Matter of fact, it's good for your mind to learn other things. See, learn other languages. Don't make fun of them. I mean, it's kind of cool. We all joke around and mess around and like do that whole see again. But a lot of this comes from a place of making fun of folks. So you got that hose A, hose B joke, and all this kind of stuff. And again, in this is where certain people's certain things start to rise up here, where people will say something like, "Oh, see, here go again." Here's that more of that liberal blah 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 thinking, all that kind of thing. Again, people have been pumped with a whole lot of stuff we're talking about, pumping the brakes when it comes to making fun of folks. Again, if they see that you can be divided, they are going to exploit that division to conquer you. That's how it works. The closer knit the society, the closer knit we are to each other, the harder it is. The harder it is. And this is for all peoples. And this is for all peoples. This is for everybody in every community. This is the ones for the white community. Because again, the game is rigged to destroy y'all too, folks. I don't know. When you're talking about what they consider, see, when they speak on this upper, lower, and middle class, it's really just upper and lower class. You either made it or you didn't. You ain't in the middle. Not really. You're kinda. They should probably call it kinda middle class. That's a whole different subject for a different time here. So again, we got to come together, folks. That song that was made way back when, it come together, folks. Again, form and build and formulate strong societies of individual groups and cultures, and cultivate those cultures. That's where all these words kind of come from, the same deal here. That's even in the language there. And well, I forgot what the word is, but there's a certain word here that deals in English where they use they allow for language. Certain languages of the world are very direct in what they're saying. When you deal with English, it allows, I'll find the word. It allows for multiple words to be used and intertwined here so they can constantly keep moving and grooving how they say things, folks. This is why natives call those who are of European descent, a forked tongue. Because it's always splitting the language. It's never, ever saying what you mean. And again, when you're talking from a Christian standpoint, that's how we're supposed to do it, right? Abstain from the very appearance of evil. See, this is why when the Puritans came, we're going to get into that with Thanksgiving here. Because see, again, dealing with Christians and those who say they love God, there's certain things you should not be seeing. And one of those is promoting division and hate. And that's exactly what happened back then. And there needs to be a call, and you see it pushed down the line even today, and it needs to be a call out on it. You want to bring healing to these lands, you want to do something better here, you need to start calling that out. The money that you're making in your churches, it needs to start getting into libraries and supermarkets and banks. And we're talking about societies that were made around churches way back when. You do not see it today. People will make excuses to cover for folks because of the fact that they don't want to see change. But you're talking about the great creator of all, who is always progressing, which is why you see this planet always moving and changing and progressing. It is why when they talk about climate change, say what you want about it, this is why the planet has been changing in its climate. Consistent, yes, but changing, absolutely. Just like its creator. Consistently and also changing. Again, spiritual laws here. Now, I already know it. I already know it because I've spoken to enough people here to get an idea. You hear the brain springs popping. What do you mean consistent and I don't understand. Again, we're talking about folks knowing very little about everyone thinks A or B. Life is not solely lived in A or B. It's not just go and stop. It's the combination of go and stop, which is why you can get yield, which folks know very little of, which is why you have go and stop, because it's hard for folks to yield. It's a shame. You go driving around today in a lot of different places, getting on the subject of neighborhoods and how they need to be built up, and the money that is generated from your tax dollar and everything like that, how it needs to be used better. But again, nobody speaks up and says anything really. They just wait for Independence Day, Election Day, far from that. But anyway, Election Day here, and get on that president, because it's that president. No, that's the showman out in front of the circus. The real folks are the guys in behind the scenes that set up and take down the circus, pack in the animals, and I'm using that as an analogy. I understand they took away circuses, but that's where the real meat's going on, folks. It's going on with your representatives, Congress, lawmakers, the stuff you don't see every day that then pops out on the news at 6 o'clock at night, and you're like, where the heck that came from? I didn't know anything about that. I never vote on that. Yeah, that's the stuff where you need to stand up, folks. That's where you need to hold accountable. That's where the letters need to go. That's who you need to be on. It needs to be less of that front ringer in our mouths, and more like whose house was represented, blah, 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 blah. Again, what law did they come out with this past 6 months? Things like that. Sports and entertainment distractions. Stop using sports and entertainment as a tool of avoidance of the problems or successes, because again, it's not just what people say as how do I say this? Always the issues, right? Because it's not always just the issues. Sometimes you can also use sports for successes, but in this case, we're talking about where they normally gender toward the problems. That's kneeling down. And again, folks, I don't see, go find another platform somewhere where, and again, when you're speaking on benign neglect, this is another topic here. Everything is meant to no, that's not really happening. That ain't really happening. No, you're not really saying that. Wait, you got to go back and look at this, and then, let's look at these numbers and this, that, and the other. See, a lot of, again, this phrase, tricknology. There's a lot of stuff to carry you off the path. Even when Jesus was ready to die, right, folks? Is coming to his time, and he has that great temptation with Satan. Y'all remember which one of the things that Satan used to tempt Jesus? Not even the bread and the food thing, right? Jump off this mountain. You're the son of God, right? When you fall, you can be okay. And it's amazing, right? We're talking the same patterns, guys and gals that don't change. It's the same thing with sexual repression, how a woman is supposed to dress and such. Now, again, you speak on responsibility of how you look. That's a totally different topic, because you could use the same topic for folks who don't wash their body every day and they come in funky as can be. There's a difference here, okay? There is a serious difference, and you got to watch for the parts where they start blending the lines, because they're going to do it. And it depends on who's going to catch into it. So now again, the point is to use any and all platforms to achieve a common goal the same way those of ulterior motive are doing. And this is funny, right? Because now you watch, the Super Bowl is a good one. Right, when everybody starts moaning and groaning the fact you see a whole bunch of black entertainers, but when there's the white ones, it's all hunky-dory. That's a problem, people. That's a problem. You cannot allow that level of partiality. If y'all are cool watching Bruce Springsteen, and those who don't want to watch, be cool when Usher's performing. See, and you hear it in people's mouths. You hear it out of there. You hear the thinking in the language, in the speaking. They show their dislike. But again, why do you not have dislike for another person? See, this thing with music gets a bit too territorial. Music is shared between all peoples of all cultures, folks. It's not belonging just to one person or the other. This is why you see music take different forms. Country that sounded like country in 1920 is not going to sound like country in 2020, 2024. Not going to sound the same. Does it mean that it's not country? No. Heck no, it don't mean it's not country. Of course it's country. But again, country's got different forms. It's got a life, man. When it first came out, it was this. Now it's that. Still same thing. Again, if you like a certain type, that's cool that you do. That don't mean everybody else is going to. And it doesn't make it wrong as a result. See? Where there is no vision, the people perish. But now again, I've already realized that in the Bible here, and it's not just from a lack of translation. This has to do with something a little bit more nefarious, and we're talking about sexism. Too many he's where they're supposed to be they, where they're supposed to be she, where I'm sorry, folks. That's just the truth. Okay. You realize the Bible's translation, go back into 1611 when you got a king in England, and Lord knows, we just finished talking about this with the Halloween episode, go back into the 1200s. Okay. So we're talking 1611. Let's see. 1601 to 1700, I believe, is called the 17th century. So the 17th century now is when the King James version of the Bible is written, right? Now, this is talking about a history of biblical translations. I've mentioned this in one episode before. We'll mention it during February. In the 1500s, they came out with a slave Bible where they removed certain verses out of the Bible so that slaves would not revolt. Something you can go look up right on your phone right now while you're listening to me. Guys, if they can mess with the translations of the Holy Bible, God's holy words, what is there to tell you that they have not messed with anything else? That does not, I want to be quite clear before God and y'all, that does not make the words of the great Creator wrong. What it makes wrong are people touching that which is holy. And the last time I checked, when people did that kind of stuff, the damage they caused to themselves was when they touched the Ark of the Covenant and they weren't supposed to. And folks started getting sick. Folks started dying. A lot of wild stuff started happening. You cannot subvert the laws of truth and justice in this reality and assume it goes well for you, because it will not. Here's another one. They will make merchandise of this. Is in Peter. This one blew me away when I found this one out, talking about Bible study, because I hadn't even heard this verse before. I hadn't read a lot, seen a lot, done a lot as far as biblical is concerned. Did not realize this one was there. They will make merchandise through covetousness. Shall they with feigned words? The word feigned means simulated or pretended or insincere. I don't know about you. I know a lot of folks do some things from a very non-sincere origin, from a very pretend or pretentious origin. Feigned words, they will make merchandise of you. There's a lot of this today in society where people's hard works and efforts are meant to put up someone else and not you. And the Bible is calling it out in this verse alone. Now, remember, Peter's the guy they hung upside down, remember? See, again, folks, what you do here is going to put target on your back. But the truth is, when you stand before your God, when you see, again, what you believe, when you stand before your Creator, can you at least say it, that I upheld some of this stuff? I did something right. Paul talks about that he ran his race, protected the faith, promoted the faith. This is where we got to get to, folks. This is the call. This is the charge. So with feigned words will make merchandise of you, whose judgment, now this one's pretty cool, because see, this is the stuff that everybody does, this benign neglect thing with, like, oh, yeah, everything's cool. We're going, it's everything is hunky-dory. You know what I mean? Whose judgment now of a long time lingereth not. I'm going to stop here for a second. Did y'all know that Wells Fargo denied a whole bunch of black homeowners, probably about, I want to say like 2015, somewhere in there, mortgages and such? When we talk on protests and things, coming together, making a case. See, there's a lot that's gone wrong on these lands. That it's time people start speaking up. Don't get mad at these strikes. Don't get mad at these labor union issues and stuff like that. Guys, support that stuff. Don't get mad at the fact that the players are making a whole bunch of money. Are you worried about the players are making a whole bunch of money? That entertainers are making money. One, you don't even realize how badly they're being actually robbed from the money they're making, because we're only looking. Everybody looks superficially to an extent, and it's very, very few actually go dig beneath the surface, even though you're told to study biblically. Again, we're talking now, right? Talking to Christians here, and those who believe. You're told to study to show thyself approved. Right? A workman that need not be ashamed. Know what you're talking about. Guys, and the Bible is a clear paths here. See, past all the other stuff they've been telling you, we're talking about treating people right. When folks talk about this thing that God don't got nothing to do with social justice and stuff, they just, again, to every person their own. I am not making fun of everybody, but this is clear here, folks, that the Bible is full of this, full of how we're supposed to operate with each other in life, man. In society. God cares about how we operate in society, folks. Honesty, justice, truth, putting down partiality and twistedness, aka wickedness of all types. This is for real. So back into this, whose judgment now of a long time lingereth not, and their damnation slumbereth not. Back in the Old Testament, in the Psalms or the Proverbs, I believe, David constantly talks about how long will the wicked, how long will the twisted continue to go on? Again, you got your answer right here. Just a few books later, right here, whose judgment now of a long time lingereth not. God is not, again, another one of these things in the Bible. God is not mocked. God is not like humans to be made fun of. There are already, I said in this last, that there are preset consequences and rewards for the stuff people do in life. God did that way for a reason, folks, because God knew people were going to use their free will of choice, because you do have a free will. This idea where you don't is totally wrong. You have a complete choice to do what you want to do. The problem is you're just not doing it in the old way you want to do it. See? Which is why when you don't practice certain things, as far as speaking the responsibility sexually here, then you can also use this with gun control. If you don't use responsibility, death is coming. Sickness and disease and death is coming. Sorrow is coming. That's just that you can't get around it. I understand maybe we would want to have it a different way. But again, guys, this makes sense. There's a penalty for the stuff you do wrong. So you have a problem with your workforce? You have a problem with health care? You have a problem with people being able to have homes and get homes and have cars and do things and go places and enjoy and have life and less stress? Then you need to get to a point here. When they talk about that in Chronicles, about healing the land and my people repenting and wanting to turn from their ways and stuff. See, guys, if we're really, really, really serious about this, then when we're talking about using voting time, see, this is talking about Christians now. Because they rep that Republican Party, and they all. If you are talking about these things, start speaking on lack of partiality. Start speaking on people doing good toward people here. Start promoting that, and you will see much healing. This would be all the different peoples that live on these lands, folks. And in the planet, of course. Because a lot of this other stuff that people vote on is global issues. But again, if you ain't got here right, how can you even be worried about what? See what I mean about society? If we all live down here on one deal, then you got to get them together here. So if you believe all lives matter, you better start timing in on them black ones. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Oh man, it's wild what people will believe. It's wild, and they know it, and it's the horse with the carrot, and they got folks clippity clopping along. They really do. Come out from among them and be ye separate. There is a reason why that verse is in the Bible. You know, people are not going to deal honestly. And this is where the part of supporting strong communities comes into play. The ones where, like in Tulsa, where they were totally burned down. Yeah, it's time to start having, wide known. Not this kind of covert. I didn't know there were black breweries. I didn't know there was, black ownership of alcohol. I didn't know that there's black folks that own basketball leagues and stuff, and like this whole Negro League debacle, playing for the MLB, when at the end of the day, they really didn't want to give shine to black folks. It was to support white ownership. You don't see no black owned team nowhere, do you? But it was there in the Negro Leagues, wasn't it? Again, when you talk on integration got nothing to do. Integration has very little, let me say it that way, in an objective way of thinking here. It has very little to do with ownership for the many, and it's got ownership for the few. Now, you want to tell me that you have leagues that support and put money back into other organizations and micro societies, if you want to say it that way, that then feed into a bigger one, that's fine. But you don't see that. I'll use this for an example. Wrestling. Big wrestling fan. Huge wrestling fan. Okay. Anybody have a conversation with me about it, we can go back and forth for a while. But at the end of the day, don't you have multiple promotions across the planet? Now, again, this was the idea way back when, right? Especially on these lands where you had multiple promotions, and then all of a sudden that went away just for WWE. See how the thing, then you talk about integrated, right? But where's the stuff that goes on in St. Louis, right? Where's the stuff that goes on in the South, in Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, that kind of thing? Where's the stuff that goes on up north, or even the Northwest, Northeast? You don't see that. Now in the Northeast on Long Island, they got a little thing going on there. It's low ground, it's under key. That's okay, or underground, I should say, low key. But at the end, that's another thing. Talking about Loki, right? One. Y'all ain't watched the second season of Loki, please do. Dealing with time and free will and all that kind of stuff, folks, which is vital for thinking. Because it's a major thing, folks. It's a major thing. People have been given free will down here, and opposing someone's free will is a problem. Again, you want to give regulations and stuff so that everybody has an equal shot, so be it. But the idea of negating it, that's a problem. Start getting some funky territory there. And when they talk about the poor, you will have what you always, it's not the fact that, oh no, I got to watch out for these homeless people over here. It is because you have the opportunity to be good to somebody. God just trying to let you know, hey man, you got a chance. As long as they're here, and they will always be here with you, you got a chance to give. You got a chance to bring up. You got a chance to strengthen. You have a chance to enrichen. For every rags to riches story is the blessed testimony of a society working properly, where people pour into each other. Somebody who has made it, going back and giving opportunity. That's another thing inside of a dysfunctional society, which we have here, which people think that just voting for the president is going to help, or the vice president, or whoever, some main person. No. Laws and regulations. That's where you want to be stuck in, not the person pushing policies. That's not going to get it done. So let's say we're going to get into it. Conservative is an adjective and a noun. By definition, conservative, and some of these terms come out in the 14th century, by the way. So it's not nothing new. While they made it up, it's not nothing new. Preserve or keep watch. So in conserve in Latin, right? So this definition, according to dictionary, averse to change. Now, averse means turned away from. And we just finished talking about what happens when folks turn away from stuff biblically. You're going to perish. Change, averse to change or innovation, and holding traditional values. So, traditional, because like I said, I was going to get into this word, folks. Now, check this out. The transmission of customs or beliefs. Now, we just finished talking about this whole idea of the separation of church and state. I've mentioned it a million times on my episodes. This idea here of belief, right? Now, here you go. See, when they talk about separation of church and state, that's another one of these things of tricknology, folks. There's no separation. You believe. See, the church part is belief, and the state is like government, right? What you believe. Now, you're just looking at conservative here, okay? We're talking about how this goes far back into the 14th century and how conservatives, can both conservative and liberal, and we're going to get into liberal definition here in a second. Conservative, right? Certain parts of government, folks are conservative. Okay? Again, it's just a word that describes this whole definition of folks who have turned away from the idea of change and innovation and hold to things that deal with the transmission of certain customs or beliefs from generation to generation, the values that come from that. That's all that means. Now, I want to temper this with this because we're talking about balance. Speaking to conservative, and this is the same thing for liberal. The letter of the law killeth, but the spirit of the law giveth life. Okay? This is a verse in the Bible here. Dealing with the fact that you cannot just look toward the letter of the law only, because there's only death there. There's only let's see, when you talk about killeth or dead, there's no life there. When you talk about the spirit of the law, it giveth life. It generates to life. Notice that life and death are both in this verse here. What am I meaning? You need both, not one or the other. It's not good to solely be conservative in your thought or where you only hold to traditional, quote unquote, traditional customs or beliefs or belief or just things that deal with certain beliefs from generation to generation. Which is why speaking about sex is necessary. Speaking about finances open is necessary, especially when you're speaking about black folk. Because when you speak to those who have had slave codes and black codes over them that stop them from having certain finances, if they are part of your society and they are weakened, they weaken your society. You need to raise them up. If you want to come up higher, I'm just talking one group of people now. It's one big group of people that people have clearly benefited from their labor. But we're talking about just one group of people here. Liberal. So let's get into liberal's definition, marked by generosity. Now, some of this is cool, right? See, the same thing with conservative. It's cool to uphold certain traditions and values and beliefs. But when you do that at the expense of seeing change or innovation, there's the problem. That's why I have said these words don't mean anything. See, it's just what you think. It's what you think. I don't need a label on me. I don't need a word on me to tell me how I think. It's how I think. Marked by generosity, given or provided in a generous way. Broad-minded. So now you can see the difference, right? One is not broad-minded, clearly, if you're averse to change or innovation. The other one is where you're not bound to authoritarianism. That deals with just like, it's this. We said it's this, it's laws, it's authority, it's just how we're doing it. Orthodoxy, which again, orthodoxy is, you got a little bit of, say, like I said, with language, it's a little bit of a twisting thing here. Orthodoxy is cool to an extent until the point where, you neglect change and innovation. And again, tradition, the word comes up again. Now, when they talk on liberal folk, where the thing is broad-minded, where it's for everybody, that's totally cool. When you don't have a consistency of some level of tradition with it, or a certain level of belief, or a certain level of control. Let me say it that way, because again, life is lived in both chaos and control. This is where it becomes issue. Now, most folks that are liberal here, they're going to lose their mind with me. Understand what I'm saying. It is good to be generous. It is not good to be generous with no control. Because now that thing goes out of whack, no different than a conservative, where they're constantly in control and never being generous. It is the balance of both, which is why both of those words are misnomers. Neither one of them makes sense, yet they use them to control society. So we keep fighting back and forth between, I'm conservative, no, I'm a liberal. No, you're a person who has a thought process. Screw the fact whether they put a label on you, that don't matter. You think that guns should be more controlled, and the other one thinks guns should not be. That's it. That's it. You think that kids ought to learn about certain things sexually, like transgenderism and drag and those who are drag queens, and others don't. That's it. Again, when the truth is, folks need to know about sexuality. That's the point. You want to tell me there's a certain age in which they should. Fair point. But at the end of the day, they need to know. You know why? Because now it affects their relationships as they get older. You don't know what pleases them. You don't know what satisfies. You don't have a clue. You know why? Because you were never taught about it. It's the same thing with finances. Folks don't have an idea how to save their money. Not to mention the system that's already thrown away saving your money a long time ago. Again, the thing is, there's a reason they call it old and new money. Old people got all the money. The young people, and again, because the society was built that way, it was already broke down and broken and bankrupt. They got it all. And then and it helps fuel the thing. See, if they realized the sick game that was played with them, they would realize they need to put this money in the kids' hands, especially these ones that got innovation and the spirit of influence on them, to get them funded so they can do what they need to do to help society. But what they do is continue to play the game here where, nah, y'all aren't good enough, and see, you ain't doing it the way I was doing it, and you know, what I did back in my day, and all that kind of stuff there. While some of it is good, much of it has been twisted to hurt instead of help. And I know I've gone on long here, and I got like another 2 pages of notes, folks, but we're sitting here at about an hour and change, and I understand folks got stuff to do and all that type of thing. So we're gonna stop it right here. Again, like I said, these are things that go on for a long time, long time. So we're gonna stop it here. I thank y'all for tuning in and listening to me. Many of y'all here, whether you agree or you don't, thank you very much. And we're just gonna keep on keeping on trucking. We're gonna go. The next one we're gonna get into is Veterans Day. So those who have served, and this goes for police. This goes for, of course, veterans. We're talking about veterans. You know, those in the military and such. Stay tuned here. Because it's going to be a big shout out to y'all, and so on and so forth. And as always, look to find the beauty in a different view.